Welcome back. So we were discussing the components of a data communication system, and as I mentioned, there are 5 main components. There is a sender. Obviously जब तक कोई information होगी नहीं तो फिर हम भेजेंगे क्या? So there has to be a sender. There has to be a receiver because ये जो information है ये किसी के लिए बनी है. So sender, receiver, the message, the medium and the protocol. So there are these 5 important components of a data communication system. और हम जो कुछ भी पढ़ेंगे वो it will be with respect to one of these 5 things. इन्हीं 5 चीजों को हम आगे एक्सप्लोर करते जाएंगे. Now let's talk about data. Data is something that is making up your text. Text can be data and this could be your message. अगर आप पीछे देखिए तो ये मेरा जो मैसेज है यही डेटा है, यही इंफॉर्मेशन है. And this is what I'm going to dwell a little more time on, that how will I represent my data. So data can be represented as text. All of us are familiar with text. We have been writing in Hindi and in English. So you know that most of our text is made up of alphabets, special characters. I'm not talking about numbers here. I'm just talking about text. And the way you represent text for computer networks is not like A, B, C, D. Every alphabet has to be represented as a sequence of ones and zeros. So this is the important information that I'm giving you now, that in computer networks, everything eventually has to look like a sequence of ones and zeros, whatever it may be. So if it is A, B, C, D, it has to be represented as ones and zeros, and there is this Unicode, worldwide accepted code for representing text. You can look up Unicode on Google and you will get a full chart where every alphabet is represented as a combination of ones and zeros, and that's what the computer uses. Then data could be represented as numbers as well. And for numbers, we use a very, very simple system. Every number is represented as its binary equivalent. So that you all know from your school, that any number in decimal system can be represented as a binary number. So eventually everything looks like as a sequence of zeros and ones. Then our images can also be data. So images also have to be changed into a sequence of ones and zeros, and that we do with the help of representing images as a matrix of pixels. So it's like the entire image is divided into a grid, and each grid is based on some kind of chrominance and luminance level which is represented by a sequence of zeros and ones. We'll not spend too much of time in trying to understand how images can be represented by numbers, because that is a completely different subject. Similarly, audios and videos can also be eventually represented by digital signals. When I say digital signals, I will also like to mention, it will be a recap for most of you, that our signals are divided into 2 kinds. Analog signals and digital signals. Analog signals are generally continuous signals and digital signals are non-continuous signals, and digital signals is what digital data gives us. So zeros and ones, if I convert them into a signal form, it will look like a digital signal. And eventually all these data which have been represented as sequence of zeros and ones, they are converted into a digital signal. We'll see some examples in our later lectures. And now of course there is this new kind of data which is called multimedia, which is a combination of 2 or more of these above options. I make a video but I also superimpose some text on it, it becomes multimedia. I combine a video with a still image and I put some other audio on it, it becomes another kind of multimedia. And most of you are witnessing multimedia these days on your OTT platforms. You see a live cricket match. So there is this live cricket match frames which are coming, and on top of that they sometimes show you a inset picture of the player, what he used to look like maybe 20 years back. So that is a multimedia. They write some text and give you some tally about his previous scoring. That's multimedia. So all these are various kinds of data, but while they are in a computer network, they are all looking like ones and zeros. Now we will also explore what kinds of data flows happen. So this is a connection between a mainframe and a monitor. So this is like your server and your monitor, and we are trying to show that the data can flow only from the mainframe to the monitor. So the direction of data is only in one direction. This kind of data communication is called simplex communication. Data flow happens only in one direction. I'll give you one example which all of you can relate with. So whenever I am using my computer and I want to give a command to the printer, I say print. All of you have done that, and your printer prints. But does your printer give you a return data? It just gives you an output in the form of the printed paper, but it cannot communicate with you. So it's kind of an example of simplex communication, one way data flow. Data will flow only from one direction. Then you can also have a half duplex transmission. So this is communication shown between two desktops. So both can send and receive. Both workstations have the capability of being a sender and a receiver, but the transmission medium can handle only one at a time. You can see the red line, that's the transmission medium, and the transmission medium is capable of carrying data only in one direction at a time. So this is called half duplex. The entire capacity of the transmission channel is reserved for only one workstation at a time. Now this sharing can be in terms of time or in terms of space. It can be a temporal or it can be a spatial sharing. But whosoever is sending the data on the transmission line gets to use the entire capacity of that transmission line. Capacity का मतलब होता है bandwidth. So how many bits per second are being carried on the channel determines the capacity of the transmission medium. हाफ ड्यूप्लेक्स का एक रियल लाइफ एग्जाम्पल है वॉकी टॉकी. आप लोगों ने अपने बचपन में सबने खेला होगा वॉकी टॉकी से. सो व्हेनेवर यू स्पीक, the other person has to be quiet. So you say, testing, I'm speaking over. So then the other person speaks. And when the other person is speaking, you can only listen. If both of you start speaking together, the information collides and it garbles the message. So these are half duplex communication systems. And then we have, of course, the most sophisticated kind of transmission, which is called full duplex. The direction of data can go on either side and it is permitted at all times. No temporal sharing, no space sharing. This is called full duplex, and the example that you can keep in mind is your telephone. Both of you can speak at the same time, both of you can listen at the same time. So whatever is your transmission medium, it is carrying conversations of both communicating parties, and in this case, if you are using a single medium, then the transmission capacity, the transmission channel capacity is divided between the communicating devices. What I mean by division of capacity is like if the capacity of this transmission medium is say 1000 bits per second, then 500 bits per second capacity will be attributed to one station and 500 bits per second capacity will be attributed to the other station. So the capacity is usually divided. But you have a way out. You can lay two identical transmission mediums, and then it is more like a simplex which is being realized like a full duplex. But you can definitely do that, and then in that case you have dedicated complete capacities to the both workstations. So just a recap, the transmission modes can be simplex where the direction of data is in one direction. It can be half duplex, where direction of data can be in either direction but one at a time. And then it can be full duplex, where direction of data can be in either direction at all times. So these are the three transmission modes in computer networks. Now, as I mentioned, a network is a set of devices, nodes, which is connected by communication links. And the criteria of the performance of the network, how well it is doing, is judged by three criteria. So, how a data communication is performing, we judge that by three criteria, and those criteria are performance, reliability, and security. So, let's look at performance. Performance is usually measured in terms of the time it takes to send the data and the time it takes for the sender to know that the data has been received. These two parameters are called transit time and response time. Performance can be measured by transit time. How long does it take the data to reach the destination? And then, of course, another measure is the response time. The receiver will respond and say, I have received this data, and this response has to go back to the sender, and that's called as the response time. Now, performance will depend upon the number of users, the kind of transmission medium you have, the hardware and the software efficiencies. So, basically, when you have a computer network, you will have certain hardware, which is your basically the nodes and the devices, and certain software which is aiding you with working of these hardwares. So the hardware and the software efficiency will determine the performance of your network. There are two other things which are associated with performance, that's the throughput and delay. Throughput का मतलब है कि कितनी जल्दी आपने कितनी सारी bits transmit कर दी. That's the throughput. And second is delay. How long did it take for your data to reach the destination? So it's kind of a combination of transit time and response time, but at a more smaller level, at the level of a bit. एक bit कितनी देर में पहुंचा? Transit time is like the entire message कितनी देर में पहुंचा. So throughput and delay, transit time and response time, the number of users, the kind of transmission medium, what kind of hardware and software you have, how efficient they are will determine the performance of the network. The second criteria is reliability. Reliability, other than whether what you have generated was delivered with accuracy, means much more. Your network, is it stable? Does it fail? Like yesterday, for instance, all of you must have noticed, it was in news, that most of our social media failed completely for about half an hour. None of us could get anything onto the social media. But it happened maybe once in 10 years. So, fairly reliable. So, the frequency of failure will determine the reliability of a network. How quickly it recovers if there is a failure. See, failure may happen. We cannot guarantee that 100% of the time, for all times to come, our network will be robust. There will be times when some of the nodes will fail. It's bound to happen. But if a failure happens and nobody knows about it, it's very reliable. But if the failure is happening repeatedly every day and the time to recover is also quite a lot, then it is not a reliable system. And robustness will determine the reliability. It will determine that something happened and yet the application kept working. Something did not work out in between, yet the delivery happened. So systems are required to be robust. They should recover very quickly if there is a failure, and if failures do happen, they should not happen very frequently. So that will determine the reliability of your network. The third very important criteria, and it is gaining significance very much in today's environment, is security. So security is about access, unauthorized access. Like, I'll give you a very simple example which will clear some concepts about security. All of us go to the ATM and we withdraw our money. Now this ATM welcomes everybody who has an account there, but I cannot look into anybody else's account. Looking into anybody else's account is called unauthorized access. I am authorized to access only my account, right? I am allowed to read my statements, my money statements, account statements, but I am not allowed to change them. So this is what is meant by authorized and unauthorized access. I can get money only from my account, nobody else's account. So these are the security issues with the network. You should be the right person. You should have authority to access certain things pertaining to your account, and for certain things you are not authorized. The second security issue is data damage and development. Now, if data is damaged and damaged because of something which is beyond your control, then what happens? So you need to somehow protect your data. It could be damaged viciously. Somebody could have damaged your data deliberately. So you need to have certain provisions which will protect your data, which will protect it from damage. At the same time, you sometimes need to develop your data also, but that also needs to be done securely. Now, supposing there are breaches, you have lost your data, somebody has unauthorized access to your data and has damaged your data, then there have to be policies and procedures for these breaches. You must have proper policies to recover from these breaches. So performance, reliability and security are very, very important for a communication network, and every network needs to take care of these. I am going to reiterate, a computer network is two or more devices connected through links. So I am kind of evolving my definition of computer network also. My first definition was that there are two machines and they are connected with a wire. And now we have evolved our definition, and I am saying a computer network is two or more devices, not only computers but two or more devices, and they are connected. Now I am not talking about a transmission channel, I am talking about connected through links. So these are devices which are connected, interconnected, and they are connected through what we are going to call as links. And for communication, for data communication to occur, for the information exchange to happen, these two devices must be connected in some way to the same link at the same time. And then based on this, we introduce to you what is called as line configuration. How are these links connected? And line configuration is of two kinds, point to point, multi-point. So we can look at both of these. Now the first diagram, where you have a station, a link and a station, and you can see that they are connected directly and they are not connected to anything else in between. This is called point to point link. In the second diagram, it's a multi-point connection where you have a mainframe and you have two or more stations, computers connected to this mainframe, but the link is common. The link is common. You see the pink things? These pink things are connecting the station to a common link, and since we have more stations on one link, we call it a multi-point connection. A multi-point connection. So point to point line configuration can be between two computers, it can be between two laptops, it can be between two desktops. So we call that workstation to workstation. This is a point to point line configuration. It can be between a mainframe and a workstation, again a point to point line configuration, only one link and two devices. Now when we look at this, it's a satellite communicating with another satellite. This is also called point to point line configuration because they are communicating on one fixed frequency. एक ही frequency पे ये एक दोनों से communicate करेंगे. So now the point to point line configuration is a little abstract. You cannot see it. You cannot see that communicating line, the connecting cable. It is happening through the free space. But yes, it's a point to point. Why? Because they are communicating only on one single frequency. See, when you use your remote control to change the channels on your TV, that's also a point to point connection between your remote and your TV. Point to point connection. This is an example of a multi-point line configuration where you have one mainframe and you have many stations. If I talk of a LAN configuration, we say lots of computers are connected through a LAN. That becomes a kind of a multi-point line configuration. It is also called as a multi-drop line configuration. Multi-drop, multi-point means the same thing, though multi-point is a more popular name for line configuration. Now, when you have a computer network where you have lots of devices, they are connected to each other with the help of communication links, then obviously they are going to form a pattern. There is going to be a geometric pattern which you will be able to see. So that is called as a topology. The topology of a computer network is the geometric representation of the relationship of all the links and the linking devices. So all the devices which are going to form your network, they are going to be connected using the links, and there is going to be some shape with which they are going to be connected. Eventually there is going to be some shape, and that is called as the topology of a network. There are four basic topologies: mesh, star, bus and ring. And these basic topologies can form tree topologies or what is called as hybrid topologies. But the basic topologies are once again mesh, star, bus and ring. Let's look at the mesh topology. Now here we have 5 devices. They are called as nodes, they are called as devices, and as you can say, they are all computers. And you will notice that each computer is connected to every other computer in this topology. हर एक कंप्यूटर से हर एक कंप्यूटर कनेक्टेड है. So one computer is connected with 4 other computers. So every computer will have 4 outgoing lines. This is called a mesh topology. This is called a mesh topology. Now, if every computer needs to be connected to every other computer in the network, then every computer is required to have as many input-output ports. एक ही पोर्ट से 4 लाइंस नहीं निकलेंगी. अगर 4 लाइंस लगानी है तो हमको 4 पोर्ट्स भी देने पड़ेंगे. Now think of a computer network which has 100 devices. So then every computer will be required to have 100 input-output ports. 100 input-output ports. Now let's see what kind of communication is happening. If we have simplex communication, then we need n into n minus 1 combinations. N into n minus 1 combinations. But if it is a duplex, full duplex communication, then it will become half, n into n minus 1 by 2, because एक ही लाइन पे आना और जाना दोनों हो जाएंगे. Both communicating devices can use the same link to communicate, to send and to receive. Now this mesh topology has certain advantages and has certain disadvantages. Now if I look at the main advantage, then it is very, very robust topology. Robust in the way that supposing one computer goes down, there is a failure in one computer. The rest of the 4 computers can continue exchanging information It does not affect exchange of data amongst the other 4. So the network will not go down. Nothing will happen to the network. The computer which has had a failure can take its time, it can recover, and it can join that network whenever it is possible. Now supposing one of the links fail. This was the case when one of the devices failed. Now if one of the link fails, even then the communication will continue in the network. Only the 2 devices which were connected by that link will suffer. Will have to kind of wait till the link is restored. So this kind of a topology is called as a very robust topology. Simple failures of nodes and links will not bring down the network. The network will continue to function. So it's called a robust technology, a robust topology. But what is the downside? But if you have a very large number of devices in this, then the amount of cabling required will be humongous. So much of cabling will be required. The cabling weight itself will be more than the number of devices. And supposing you want to add a new device to this network, then what happens? You need so many numbers of cable. If you have 100 devices, 100 cables have to come out from that new device. And that's a big disadvantage. We are going to stop here. We'll continue discussion with other kinds of topology in our subsequent sessions. I hope you enjoyed this session.